Hi everyone, I'm back again without a mic, so apologies again. I'm not going to keep repeating myself, but today I was just listening to one of Emma Chamberlain's podcasts, and it was completely unrelated, but she was talking about something that actually has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. Maybe this was my own thought. So I was just thinking in the car whilst listening to this podcast that has nothing to do with what I'm about to talk about, now that I think about it. I was thinking about how many jobs I've had and about how much experience I have in jobs and I remember why it was relevant. So she was talking about the podcast episode was about disliking people, and apparently she found this article from Harvard where they were saying that if you like everyone, you don't know who you like. So it's almost I don't want to say process of elimination or when you know that what you don't like, you know what you like, you know? And I kind of was thinking about it in a job sense because I have had probably around 15 jobs. I think last time I checked it was 13 or 14, and that was a couple jobs ago. So I'm probably at 15, maybe more. Bear in mind I did start working when I was 14 years old. So this is how old am I? 21. It's 7-year period, I guess. And I am very much the type of person where if I don't like a job, I'll leave and I won't stay in that environment. And to give you a bit of background knowledge, I worked a seasonal job for 3 years. I worked in an ice cream shop, and because of that, every winter I would have to get a new job. So, and bear in mind, I've had every experience under the sun with jobs. I've been fired, I've had predatory bosses, I've had great relationships with my bosses, I've walked out, I've done the trial shift and then not gone back, I've taken unpaid work, I've literally been a fucking cold caller. I'm sorry, I feel I need to stop swearing. I don't know, when I listen to other people's podcasts, they don't really swear, and I feel I should probably stop. But anyway, sorry, I'm sidejacking. So yeah, I've literally done every fucking job under the sun. I swore again. I'm sorry. I don't know. Can someone tell me whether it's vulgar or not, or if you don't really acknowledge it? Because I don't even acknowledge it until after I've done it. Someone message me and tell me, please. Anyway, so I think this podcast is probably going to be quite short because I've pulled over on the side of the road to do this. I've been doing that a lot recently. It's proper old Moon Story style. But anyway, I kind of wanted to talk about the things that I have learned in the 7 years that I have been a working woman that have helped me suss myself out. So the first thing that came to my mind, I'm just going to talk about what came to my mind when I spoke about when I was thinking about it, and then just go from there. Hopefully that's how it usually works. So the first thing that came to my mind was figuring out a schedule that works for me. So I've done jobs where it's 12-hour shifts, I've done jobs where it's 5-hour shift, I've done jobs that are mornings, I've done evenings, I've literally done everything. I've done 7 a.m. starts, I've done 6:30 starts, I've done 7 p.m. starts. I literally every shift pattern that you could imagine that is common, I guess, I've done split shifts, I've done 4-hour shifts, anything. And I think what I've noticed is that I'm now in a job that I really like, and I have a great relationship with them, and it's very consistent. And for me, a great thing is this is all subjective, so you kind of have to interpret this to your own brain. I've realised that I don't like working evenings because my ADHD brain waits all day for the evening to come round, so I can't do anything all day because I'm just thinking about work. And then I go to work, come home, and then I've either got to go straight to bed or I don't want to go to bed because I'm not in sleep mode when I get home, and then I end up staying late and my sleep pattern gets fucked, and I just don't enjoy working nights or working evenings. And bear in mind, I worked in restaurants for a fair few years. So I did this for a long time, and it's not for me. I know a lot of people that think like this as well, that they would so much rather work a morning and then just get it over with. And I will tell you this now, I think my favourite shift pattern I've ever done was a 7 till 2 or 7 till 3. I used to do quite a lot of 7 till 4s, which is obviously quite a long, I say long, it's like 9 hours, but that wasn't too bad either. And I'll tell you why, like from my personal experience, working mornings is like the nicest thing ever, because yeah, getting up's a bit of a ball ache, like you've got to wake yourself up, which is the hardest bit. But once you actually like get up, the morning just flies. Like, I don't know about you, but if you wake up, if you're an early riser or you have to get up early for work, you'll understand what I mean when I say that the hours from 7 till 12 don't exist. Like, they actually don't. Bear in mind, that's 5 hours. Like, that's actually 5 hours of your time. And I always find that if I wake up at like, say I wake up at like midday, and then, you know when you do that thing where you like don't check your phone and then the next time you look down it's like 4 p.m. If you woke up at 8, that would only take you to 12, you know? Like, then it would be midday, but it's already 4 p.m. Do you see the difference? Like, do you get where I'm coming from? It's like, I feel like my days, the mornings always go super quick in my head. I don't know if this is just a me thing. And as well, I kind of like just waking up and going to work. I don't like waking up and waiting around. And I know some people like it because they can do the whole like chill in the day, get some stuff done. I can't get anything done. I literally can't. Don't even try and make me do a task before my main task, which is going to work, because I only do 2 tasks a day and one of my tasks is work. And if I have to do another task before the main task, I will always put the main task first. Main task comes first, and then the secondary task is the less important one that comes second. And you can't flip that logic. That doesn't work for me anyway, because of my neurodivergent brain. But that is my system. So my system is work in the mornings, and then when I come home I can do anything I want or I can do nothing. And it's really nice to have the option to do nothing. I really enjoy sometimes going home and doing nothing. Whereas when I feel like I go home from a shift and it was an evening shift, I'm like weirdly awake. You know, I don't know if anyone else like resonates with this. I hope they do. But yeah, so the thing for me is find your pattern, find your shift pattern and your style that you like. If you like working nights, good for you. I don't know how you do it. Fair play. If you like working days, find that. I think a good thing as well is to also find the hours that you like to work. So I sort of have, my first like long job that I worked in for 3 years, I would say it was like primarily 6 to 7 hour shifts. But for like a 16, 17-year-old, that felt kind of long. But now that would be like a lovely shift to work. And now I do anywhere from like 8 to 10 hours. And that's like my happy medium. I used to work in River Island and I would do 2 4-hour shifts a week. I had 3 jobs at the time though, so that wasn't my only income stream. But I would drive up. I live nowhere near the Mall, by the way. I know there's people that probably don't understand that. Right, let me put this in perspective for people that don't live near me. I used to live about a half-hour drive up the motorway. So it was like a good 20 miles to get, maybe like 15 miles to get to my job. So I was putting in my car I was putting a full tank a week in my car. And I think at the time I was on like £6 an hour and I was doing 2 4-hour shifts a week. So do the fucking maths yourself. But basically I was breaking even. Like I was breaking even on my money that I was spending getting there versus working there. And it was retail. So I guess like retail's boring in a way. Like everyone knows retail's kind of boring. Like it's the same thing over and over again. But 4-hour shifts actually felt like forever. I remember I used to do a 1 till 5, and then on the weekend I did a 12 till 4 or something, because it was a Sunday and they just shut at 4, and it was just horrible. Like, also one thing that I figured out is I don't like doing midday shifts either. Like, I'm an advocate of a morning start. Everyone likes a morning start. Like, a morning start is great. The only bad thing is getting up. Like, starting at 12 or 1, I don't know why. It's just, like, the worst time to start a shift, apart from, like, starting at 5. I just don't like starting anything. Anything after, like, 10, I'm like, nah, I don't like starting that late. I think I'm just really picky. I think because I've worked so many jobs as well, like, I really know what I do and don't like, and, like, what I will and won't accept from a workplace, which I think is really important, to have workplace boundaries. maybe that's another thing I'll talk about, is setting workplace boundaries. But yeah, find the pattern that you like, and also find something that isn't a waste of your travel time, you know? Like, find the times that work for you, and don't, like, make the times work for you, don't work for the times. Like, I don't know why I was spending all this money and this time getting to this job when I was there for 4 hours, but it felt like 10 hours, you know? So I think, the next thing that I will talk about is workplace boundaries. I'm gonna open my window quickly because I'm really hot. Okay. So I've worked a lot of jobs, especially when I was younger and I didn't understand like workplace etiquette properly. I got walked all over in jobs. And I think that's why I went through this period where I would just like up and leave every job, because I was just like, there's no way to get respect in a workplace. I'm going to be taken advantage of. They're going to treat me in ways they shouldn't, and there's nothing I can do about it. Whereas there was things I could do about it, but because I was so young, I didn't know that, you know? That's kind of why I'm making this, because I feel like it's really important to understand your rights as a worker. One thing you should do, look up your legal rights. So, like, legally, look up the hours that you're allowed to work, especially if you're under 18, like, please. Look up the hours you're allowed to work, what breaks you should be getting, your wage, any other perks. Like, have that knowledge in your hand. Like, memorize it, because employers won't listen to it. They won't follow it. And if you say, I'm struggling, or this is too much, and they say, well, tough, you could say, well, you're actually breaking the law. And then they'll probably look at you and go, what the fuck, who do you think you are? And then you'll be like, I know my rights. And it's really awkward having to do that, especially if you work in an environment where everyone kind of just puts up with it. Because one thing that I will tell you is super true about setting boundaries is people that aren't used to having boundaries put in place around them, or as a result of their actions, will take it personally, and they'll make it your problem when it's not your problem. Because I think a boundary is an attempt for you to continue in a relationship, not a way to end the relationship. And if you consistently, I will say this now, if you consistently try and set boundaries in a workplace or in a friendship, in a relationship, anything, family, whatever, you have every right to cut that person out. If they're not listening and respecting your boundaries, you can cut them out, and you don't have to feel guilty about it, because you've tried. And I think I made the mistake when I was younger of, in all these jobs, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to set boundaries. So I wouldn't, and I would just leave, and I would just walk out, and everyone would be like, you've got a terrible work ethic. Why can't you stick to a job? Why can't you this? And it wasn't because I had a bad work ethic. It was because I felt threatened. I didn't feel safe. I wasn't being respected. And the only way that I knew how to get myself regulated again was to leave that environment. And honestly, more life to me for that, because as a 16-year-old that stayed in a job, specifically one job that she shouldn't have for way too long, I feel like that was kind of my way of taking the power back. And while it definitely caused me some stress, because I would just up and leave jobs and then be like, oh shit, I have no money now. What am I going to do for money? It also taught me the importance of trusting myself and trusting my gut. I worked in a restaurant, a super, super popular restaurant in Weston-super-Mare for 2 weeks, and I just knew that it wasn't right for me, you know? I kept asking them not to put me, at the time my car was broken down, and I just kept saying, can you stop putting me on split shifts, because I can't get home, and then I've got to get back, and it's just I'm not having a time to have a break. All I have is these I don't have a split in the middle. I'm just pacing around Western town. This isn't fun, this isn't a break. And I just left. I just up and left, because I was you're not listening to me, you're not respecting my boundaries, you're not whatever. And then after that job, I found the job that I do now, which is a job that I've been in for over a year, and I love it. So it's one of those things where you have to understand that you are allowed to set boundaries, and it doesn't mean that you're trying to take charge or trying to be the boss or trying to whatever. You're allowed to be honest with your bosses and your managers, and tell them about things that are going to be an issue for you. And if that's an issue for them, reconsider, because at the end of the day, they're not going to change, so you just might have to change. Is it worth it, really? Especially if you're on minimum wage. Another thing that I want to talk about, kind of goes hand in hand with boundaries, is minimum wage job, minimum effort. And I know the amount of people that are on that like hustle culture, hustle grind will be like, that's not the mentality to have. You shouldn't have that mentality. You should put 100% in, blah, 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 blah. Why should you? Why should you? I know so many people, and I think this is a very my generation thing to think, but I know so many people that are of older generations that are so into their jobs and they love their jobs and they like give so much to their jobs, but they are so burnt out. Like they are so burnt out because they're not putting in, they put in more than they need to. And fair enough, like fair play to them for doing that and for like taking that time and whatever, and like being the backbone and, you know, but I mean, I'm very much of the mentality of set the bar low and impress people, don't set the bar high and let people down. Because as someone who is like, I'm very inconsistent in my everything, like I can't say anything more. Everything I've ever done in life I've been inconsistent in, like whether it's grades or whether it's jobs, whether it's friendships or whether it's feelings, where I'm just inconsistent as a person. And one thing that I don't want people to expect from me is like a constant level or a constant work rate, because that's just not how I operate. I can't be consistent. It's just not in my brain to be that. And I make that very, very clear when I go in. Like, some days you're going to get the best worker out of me that you've ever seen ever, and I'm going to be better than anyone in this place. And other days, you will get the bare minimum. And I'm not saying bare minimum as in I'm not going to do my work, but I'm saying I'm going to do my work, and that is all. I'm not going above and beyond because, like, mentally I don't have it in me today. And that's me prioritizing, again, with a boundary thing. Like, I'm prioritizing the fact that I'm not going to push myself or my limits above what is technically above my pay grade. I'm not paid to do that. I'm paid to come in and do my work. If I feel like doing more because I'm feeling up to it, I will. If I'm not feeling up to it, I won't. And that's okay. And that's allowed. And I'm allowed to do that, you know? And that doesn't make me a bad worker. It doesn't make me... Like, I have so many friends that stay in jobs where they get disrespected and they get let down and they get treated like shit and they get walked all over and they've got no boundaries. And it's frustrating because I think because I've had so many jobs and I'm like... I understand the working world probably more than the average person, purely because of how many different experiences I've been in. I will tell you, every workplace is the exact same. Whether it's catering, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's any industry, like media, anything. I've done it all. I've literally done... The only thing I haven't done has been a barber or a brickie, and I don't see myself doing either of those, so they might be completely different. But I've done self-employed, I've done everything, I've literally done it all, and every industry is the exact same. They all run the same, they've all got the same dynamics, the same power dynamics. And I think being able to understand that you can walk in somewhere and you can set a boundary in a way that's not rude and isn't like, well, I'm not doing this, full stop. Like, it's not like that. Obviously, there's a businessy way to go about it and you have to kind of have a bit of tact. But there's a way to do it and a way to be heard and understood and listened to, but also doesn't mean that you're compromising yourself, you know? I think I'm very much, I work to live, I don't live to work. And that's okay. There's two types of people. Some people are very career-oriented. I would be career-oriented if I found something that I wanted to be my career. And until I do, I work to live. And that's okay, you know? Like, if you have a career and you're super passionate about it and you want to invest all this extra time and extra hours into it, do it. Like, better yourself, you know? But, like, I've been a waitress for 6 years. You know, I'm not picking up anything new. Yes, every day's a learning day, every day's a school day, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like every day I go in and I'm putting the skills towards a bigger goal, you know? Like, I'm not... Yes, I improve my communication and whatever, but I don't need to go home and research all of these things about customer service and whatever, because it's just kind of second nature. Like, it is what it is now. And, like, I think it's one of those things where you kind of just learn that with age and with experience. I have friends that are petrified of job interviews, and you really shouldn't be. Like, I think a big thing as well is understanding how to control the situation. Like, if you go in somewhere looking like a lost little lamb and you say, can I have a job, please? Like, they might hire you, but then they're not going to, like, take you very seriously. And I say this as someone who's been there. Like, I've been there, but now also I'm on the other foot of that, where I see when these, like, really young people come in and they're like, oh, here's my CV. And it's like, and they say, oh, we're fully staffed. It's like, we're not fully staffed, but we know that, like, technically it's an assumption, you know? It's an assumption of, you look like you don't know what you're doing, so we think that you don't know what you're doing, which is an unfair thing to do, is to make that assumption. But, like, in the nicest possible way, life's unfair, and people are going to make assumptions about things all the time, and that's what I'm saying is you need to control the situation and, like, go in, be confident, say what experience you've got. If you haven't got experience, be like, I haven't got experience, I'm willing to learn, like, I pick things up quickly, I'm a fast learner, blah, 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 you know, everything you see on TikTok all the time. And, like, don't be scared, because at the end of the day, they need you too. Like, this is one of the most key pieces of advice I would give to, like, a 14-year-old who's looking for their first job is they need you more than you need them, because they wouldn't have hired you otherwise. Like, they really do need you, especially in the service industry. A lot of this that I'm speaking about will be from the service industry perspective, is that we're spread so thin that the help is so appreciated, and, like, it might not always be vocalized how appreciated you are. Especially in a fast-paced environment, we haven't got the time to, like, sit around and be like, thank you so much for taking the time to, like, be a good member of staff, you know, like, but you are appreciated. And I think if you're being unappreciated, like, outwardly, if you're getting, like, shouted at, like, I've seen jobs where, like, people have just, like, openly shouted at people, or, like, managers get shitty, or they have this, like, ego, or, like, there's, like, an unfair power dynamic, or, like, an abuse of power, specifically with young girls in the workplace. I feel very passionately about that. And there's, like, I say exploitation, just the, like, the improper treatment of young girls in the workplace it makes me so angry, because I went through that, and it's really, I don't think other people should go through that. But the reason they do go through that is because they don't know their rights, and they don't know what is normal. Like, I worked in this job for 3 years, and I thought the way I was being treated and the questions I was being asked were normal. It's not normal to be treated that way, and you shouldn't have to be treated that way. And it has affected every other job I've ever walked into. And like I said earlier, it explains why I walk out, because I feel threatened. And my fight or flight kicks in. And it's like, I know so many girls that have worked in environments where either they get touched up, or people ask them inappropriate questions, or they get mistreated, or their boundaries aren't respected. Simply that. Like, it could just be that they are given too many hours that they can't work. They've got other commitments, and people just don't want to listen. And, like, obviously this isn't just applicable to young girls, but as someone who was a young girl and went through this, it really grinds my gears to see this still happening, because I know that you can't change the employers. You can only change your mindset and your outlook and what you will and won't accept. So to any young girls listening to this, please know that you can just walk out. You'll get another job. It's not that hard to find another job. Don't let anyone tell you that there's no jobs out there, because they're lying. That's a big fat lie. The amount of times that I've quit a job and walked into a new job the next day is, it must be at least 5 or 6 times. It's possible. And if someone is telling you that there's no jobs out there, or you're going to struggle to get a job, or you're whatever, literally go tell them to do one, because they're lying. And the reason they're probably saying it is because they don't want you to make more money than them. Sorry, controversial statement, but I don't care. Like, it needs to be said. Don't let people tell you there's no work. Especially the hospitality industry is, like, cripplingly in need of workers, and they'll take you the same day. Like, if you went in wearing black, I'm sure they'd say, well, you can start now. Like, genuinely, do not let people tell you that there is no work. Don't let people walk all over you. Like, know your rights. Know what you like. Know your schedule. Don't work with your friends, ever. You can make work friends, but don't work with your friends. Because the relationship you have with your workers is so different to the relationship that you have with your friends. Like, you can get arsey with your co-workers and then in 10 minutes it's fine. If you work, like, I've worked with friends and the relationships just fall apart because working styles are very different to friendship styles. I have people that I work with that are lovely people, but to work with, they're a fucking nightmare. And like, that's not a dig or anything. It's just like, some people are lovely people, but they don't have it in them to work the way that you need them to work, or you don't have the same work styles, which mean that you might be compatible friends, but to work with you just wouldn't be compatible. And it's just something, like to say, don't mix business and pleasure. Just don't fucking do it. Honestly, don't do it. But what I will say is, go to the extracurriculars at your work. If your work has, like, our work has barbecues sometimes, or if you get invited to like a work meal or a work social, go to it. Like, go to those. They are so good, and they make your work life so, especially if you're working full time, they make your work life so much better because you form closer relationships with the people you're working with and you connect with them. And like, there's nothing better than going into work and all your friends are working, you know? Like, it makes it less of a work day and more of just a day. Well, my brain switched off now, but thank you guys so much for listening. Work is something I feel very passionately about. I have a lot of experience in it. So I feel like this is probably one of my better podcasts. Let's say leave feedback. You can leave feedback now. If you want to leave feedback, you can leave feedback. I would really appreciate it. Love you guys. Bye.